Welcome, the chosen ones. Don't mistake someone's quiet for a weakness. Sometimes stillness is only the calm before a terrible storm. You see, the most dangerous individuals aren't the ones that immediately strike back. They are the ones who took every blow, chronicled every betrayal, and went away without saying anything. Why? Because they understood that the cosmos does not need a witness to slap back. It merely needs time. This is a disturbing reality. According to psychological studies, those who willfully injure others with little empathy are more likely to repeat the act unless it is halted by major repercussions. Translation: they won't stop unless something or someone stops them. And that person was you. Let's not sugarcoat this. What you went through was not an accident. It was orchestrated. These weren't spontaneous outbursts or misinterpreted situations. This was purposeful cruelty, delivered with a straight face and a sneer. They did not show compassion because they never intended to. But guess what? The same people who showed you none are now asking the cosmos for a drop. And let's be honest, isn't it a bit gratifying to see karma strike like a GPS-guided rocket with perfect accuracy? I mean, these individuals went from stone cold to spiritually tanned very quickly. So brace up, because in this video, we'll reveal the unvarnished truth about how you were purposefully targeted, tortured, and tested. And now the table isn't just spinning. It's flipping the whole room. Let's discuss why their acts weren't errors. They were planned, which explains the consequences they are currently facing. Oh, they aren't random. These are the receipts. Let's get to it. Number 1. They did not make a mistake. They implemented a strategy. They did not make an error. They implemented a strategy. And it is the ugly truth that no one wants to accept. What occurred to you was not a mishap. It was not a person going through anything. They weren't just being immature or uninformed. They understood what they were doing. They didn't think you'd make it. Every insult, treachery, every cold shoulder was deliberate. They saw your emotions. They pushed your limitations. They saw how much agony you could withstand without cracking. And when you didn't break, they pressed harder. It was not chaotic. It was about control. They were gently removing your layers to determine your breaking point. Not because they cared, but because they had invested in your demise. That is the part that hurts the most. This was not emotional immaturity. This was emotional warfare. They did it under strain, not in the heat of the moment, but in the cool of premeditation. They grinned in your face while plotting behind your back. They made sure no one believed you. They placed seeds of doubt around you to make you seem unstable while they remained clean. It was all part of a subtle play, but you were the only one who bled. The most twisted aspect is how natural they made it seem. They did not shout. They didn't toss anything. They wore masks, polished faces, and soft tones. However, behind closed doors, they converted your world into a slow burn, one in which the fire was unseen, but the harm was irreversible. You kept questioning yourself. Was it me? But it wasn't. It never was. You were just the canvas. They needed someone to pour their gloom on. And now they're shaking. Not because they feel guilty, but because they see that the mask is crumbling and people are beginning to glimpse the reality. They did not do this by mistake. It was a spiritual, emotional, and mental impact. And you were never feeble. You were merely up against someone who was schooled in deceit. But they didn't reckon on your resurrection. That's the bit that scares them now. They implemented a strategy, but they didn't count on you coming back sharper, stronger, and no longer scared to tell the real tale. Number 2. Your anguish was their amusement until the stage turned. They did not just endure your suffering. They liked it. Your worst experiences become their source of entertainment. When you wept, they didn't move. When you stumbled, they smiled. Behind closed doors, they chuckled at your uncertainty, anguish, and tiredness. They weren't satisfied with just hurting you. They wanted to see you suffer. The more you tried to keep it together, the more they tore things apart to see how far they could go until you cracked. Your life became their own drama series. And they became glued to each episode. They were not searching for healing. They were seeking for a front row seat for your breakdown. They'd grin at your face while twisting the knife behind your back. Not because you deserved it, but because your power made them feel insignificant. And the only way they could feel powerful was by bringing you down. That's why they tapped into your vulnerabilities, aroused your trauma, and then acted foolish when you responded. It was never an accident. They wanted to see the fractures in your armor. They sought evidence that they could bring even you down. But there's one thing that's driving them crazy right now. You didn't shatter as they expected. You did not offer them the finish they desired. You did not collapse. You changed. And now the same people who smiled through your pain are hiding behind closed doors, hoping no one finds out what they did. The roles have reversed, and the stage is no longer theirs. Everything they accomplished in secret is coming to light. Lies, sabotage, and brutality. Everything seems to be coming full circle. They're not laughing anymore. They've become paranoid. Now they're looking out for themselves. Because they understand that the cosmos does more than merely observe. It replies. They never anticipated retribution to appear with your face. The fact is that they turned your misery into entertainment because they didn't think you'd make it. But they are now compelled to watch you triumph. And that's the type of spectacle they never expected. One in which you rise, and they are forced to sit in quiet and observe, exactly as they made you do. Number 3, you were the experiment, but they were the proof. You weren't just wounded. You were examined. You were the experiment. They were unable to stop watching. They pushed your limits, reopened old scars, and analyzed every response as if they were gathering data. They wanted to know just how much it would take to shatter you. This was not about mending or misunderstanding. This was intentional. They wanted to see how far they could go before you snapped. Not out of worry, but out of control. You were their emotional test subject, and every act of cruelty was a premeditated step in their bizarre little game. They did not desire your recovery. They wanted you to break down. And the harsh part, they continually modifying the rules of the game without informing you. They were nice for a minute. The next cold. One day, they will build you up. Then they ruin you via silence or sarcasm. It was manipulation, dressed up as affection and bewilderment, packaged as worry. But in actuality, they were monitoring, documenting, and dissecting your misery as if it were a scientific experiment. Because they didn't consider you a person. You were a challenge, a soul they couldn't grasp. So they attempted to control. But this is what they didn't expect. They became the proof. Every time they injured you, they left a trace. Every falsehood, set up, each murmur behind your back. Everything is being revealed right now. You weren't just a target. You were a living reminder of their evil. And now that you are still standing, the attention has changed. People are beginning to ask inquiries. Those who previously believed their version of the narrative are now noticing flaws in their facade. You survived what was intended to kill you, and your sheer presence confirms all they attempted to conceal. They treated you like a laboratory animal, but now they're the ones being scrutinized, monitored, and exposed. Your recovery is progressing into a revelation, and it scares them because you aren't simply surviving. You are testifying. You are living evidence of what they did. They wanted data. Now the truth is out, and it reveals who they are and who you've become, someone they can never control, outthink, or erase. Number 4, compassion was denied because they believed you were helpless. They did not refuse you clemency inadvertently or without consideration. It was an obvious option based on their perceptions of you. They measured you up and saw what they wanted to see. Someone who is weak, alone, and has no one to fight for or alongside them. Because of that idea, they felt untouchable, as if they could cross every border and break every barrier without consequence. Their hatred sprang not from ignorance, but from a calculated notion that you lacked a shield, spiritual armor, inner strength, and legitimate authority to resist. That belief made them reckless, arrogant, and deadly. Bold. But here's where they went wrong. The true failing was not their brutality. It was their inability to grasp your actual essence. They believed that power implied volume control or visual domination. They didn't grasp that power often flows quietly beneath the surface, undetectable to people blinded by ego. They misinterpreted your karma submission. Patience is weakness, and quiet is submission. The truth. You were gaining strength in ways they could not see. They built fortifications they didn't respect and aligned with forces they didn't recognize. You were not powerless. You were just underestimated. That is the irony of it all. The rejection of kindness was their downfall because it showed their innermost insecurity, a fear of who they actually are. They attacked because they felt threatened. They did, however, provide you with a map of their vulnerabilities. They believed they had all the cards, only to discover you were playing a completely other game. The compassion they refused to show you is now returning to them as a reckoning. They intended to shatter you, but instead they unleashed a power they never expected. One that is prepared to rise, reclaim, and redefine what power really means. Number 5. You were their shadow work, and they chose to project rather than repair. You did not just cross their path. You were the physical embodiment of everything they refused to confront inside themselves. All the components were buried deep. They have worries, guilt, humiliation, and failures. Instead of turning within and working hard to recover, they choose the simpler, darker road to strike out at you. They saw you as more than simply a person. You were a mirror, revealing their hidden darkness and making some people uncomfortable rather than accepting their imperfections. They projected their inadequacies onto you, making you the focus of their internal conflicts. They weren't assaulting you because of who you were, but because of what you showed about who they weren't prepared to be. Your light shined where theirs was faint. Your honesty revealed their falsehoods, and your truth challenged their comfy illusions. You embodied everything they rejected in themselves. So, instead of growing, they decided to destroy. The purpose was not to injure you for your sake, but to mute the reflection that forced them to confront their own darkness. This kind of assault does not feel personal. It's a desperate protection mechanism. It's simpler to break the mirror than to pick it up and inspect the fractures within. So every insult, snub, and act of sabotage was an effort to conceal the evidence of their own flaws. But here's the catch. No matter how hard they attempted to smash the mirror, it kept reflecting the truth, and you continued standing tall. In the end, they did not just attempt to injure you physically or emotionally. They attempted to eliminate your entire existence as a mirror of their own unhealed state. But you cannot be erased. They disliked the mirror, yet it still shines. And now it's showing them precisely what they need to face if they ever want to find peace. You took on their shadow job, whether they liked it or not. And it's a role that alters everything. Number 6. Your compassion was a weapon. They turned against you. Your benevolence was not a weakness, it was your strength. But they turned it into a weapon against you. They regarded your empathy as an open door, an opportunity to enter and influence your heart. Every time you've forgiven them, it did not imply that you approved their behavior. It was the fuel they used to keep pushing the envelope, to see how far they could go without consequences. Your stillness was not peaceful. It was the space they need to play their games, establish their lives, and tighten their hold without resistance. They expected you to be the greater person, to take the harm silently and let it go. They expected you to have unlimited patience and an impenetrable heart. But they didn't grasp that your compassion was never an excuse for cruelty. It was a shield of righteousness. You decided to forgive because you were stronger than hatred, not because you were vulnerable. Your quiet was a purposeful decision, not a capitulation. And suddenly the irony strikes. The same generosity they abused is the proof that will expose them. Your tolerance, elegance, and reluctance to descend to their level. These are the characteristics that define their brutality and selfishness. You were difficult to break because you hung onto something deeper than rage. You held upon your truth, and the truth is loud. Their abuse of your generosity exposes their own emptiness. They mistaken your heart for weak. But this was a stronghold. And now, as the walls draw in, your generosity demonstrates not just what you've been through, but also who you really are. Someone who is righteous, resilient, and unashamedly entire. What they turned against you will ultimately prove to be their undoing. Number 7. They played judge, jury, and executioner while ignoring the actual court. They arrogantly declared themselves judge, jury, and executioner of your life. Sentences are handed out without any genuine evidence or a fair trial. They weren't interested in your side of the story, your sorrow, or the truth. They just cared about their own story and goal. They condemned you in their thoughts and pretended that their decision was definitive and undeniable. Mercy, fairness, and justice were not part of their procedure. They believed they had the ability to ruin you secretly and without repercussions. But they failed to realize or refused to accept that their court is not the one that actually counts, beyond their petty judgments and private trials. A much larger court has opened. This court does not depend on rumors, falsehoods, or prejudiced testimony. It acts according to spiritual rules, karmic balance, and divine justice. It pays close attention to every detail. It does not ignore the truth and does not allow injustice to go unchecked. Everything they sought to conceal in the shadows is now coming to light. Every choice they made, every harsh word uttered, and every private effort to control or condemn you is being tried in public. And this higher court's ruling is not one of compassion. It's about accountability. What they felt was power was merely a fleeting illusion, and true power belongs to truth and the divine justice that governs it. They may have done without conscience, but the universe does not forget. What they attempted to bury is rising. What they attempted to stifle is now speaking out, and what they believed was final judgment is becoming their reckoning. The actual court is open, and it is delivering a sentence that they will not be able to avoid. Number 8. The damage was ritualistic, not random. The injury you suffered was not the result of a random outburst of rage or a single error. It was planned, repeated, and premeditated, a ritual meant to wear you down piece by piece. Every harsh remark, chilly gaze, each act of neglect or control was not unintentional. It was part of a pattern designed to confound and crush your spirit. This was neither a quarrel or a simple argument. This was psychological warfare, a methodical, systematic onslaught designed to erode your feeling of self and authority. They did not react impulsively. They aimed to keep you off balance. They generated cycles of stress and release. Hope and disappointment keep you wondering and questioning your own reality. This is not how healthy partnerships operate. This is how abusers act when they want to control and obliterate your identity. The emotional battering eroded your confidence. Mental games impaired your judgment. The physical intimidation, no matter how mild, served as a continual reminder that they possessed the authority. You weren't debating with ordinary folks. You were surviving a plan. This recurring pattern was not an accident. It was intended to confuse you so much that you would doubt your own recollection, value, and truth. They sought to dominate your mind and soul, making you feel confined and weak, unable to fight back successfully. But here is the reality. Rituals like these do not endure forever. What was intended to break you has instead increased your consciousness. You recognized the signals, identified the techniques, and found strength in surviving. Yes, the hurt was purposeful. Nevertheless, so was your rehabilitation. You are not a victim of chance. You are a warrior who overcame psychological warfare and survived to tell the tale. That pattern no longer has influence over you since you now recognize what it was. They executed a ceremony to attempt to murder your spirit, and you refused to let it succeed. Number 9. They are not sorry. They are afraid. There is no guilt or regret in what you are experiencing. It is pure, undiluted terror. They're not regretful about what they did. They are scared of what is coming. The calm facade is breaking because they are aware that the walls are closing in. The falsehoods they told, the devastation they caused, and the betrayals they imagined would be forgotten. All of it is resurfacing, louder and clearer than before. The terror in their eyes is not of losing you, but of losing control, credibility, and their carefully built image. They never expected you'd collect evidence, anecdotes, and put together the facts like a tenacious investigator. They relied on your quiet, anguish, and uncertainty to keep the truth secret. But you didn't just survive. You become the live chronicle of their wrongdoings. And the same evidence they thought would vanish is now being exposed. And it is scary for them. They're not dealing with guilt because it involves empathy, which they lack. Instead, they are scurrying, fretting, and planning ways to guard against the unavoidable consequences. Their terror is heightened by the realization that the implications are far-reaching. They are spiritual, emotional, and sometimes even legal. What they throw at you is returning doubled. Karma never forgets, and justice never sleeps. They watch the consequences swirling back like a merciless storm, driven by every tear, betrayal, and injustice they assumed would go undetected. They never expected your ascension. The target becomes the victor, and the suppressed voice transforms into a strong witness. They felt you were the easiest to break, but you are now the most difficult to ignore. Their anxiety is not about regret. It's about losing a struggle they believed they had won. That's the reality that keeps them up at night. Number 10. They attempted to eliminate you because you were the evidence they were lying. They attempted to obliterate you because you were a live contradiction to every lie they said. Your mere presence exposes the lies they used to cover their tracks, conceal their shortcomings, and control others. You weren't just an annoyance. You were irrefutable evidence that their story was based on lies. The reality you brought posed a danger to that carefully manufactured image, which worried them more than anything else. That's why they tried so hard to silence you. They cut you off from support, expecting that without witnesses, your truth would slip into obscurity. They insulted you, ridiculed your suffering, and portrayed you as unstable. Anything to undermine you and keep their lives intact. Their purpose was obvious. Make yourself invisible, unimportant, and weak. So their version of the tale was the only one that counted. But they didn't comprehend that the truth you carry is louder than theirs. No amount of whisper campaigns, slander, or manipulation can mask the reality you face every day. Your survival is not only a silent accomplishment, it's a clear indication that their lives are falling apart. People are beginning to see through their masks in order to hear your side of the story and comprehend the whole picture. The barriers they put around their life are collapsing because you refuse to be erased. You are obvious proof of their inability to control the narrative. And now, in an unexpected twist, your truth is coming through. They attempted to hide the truth, but it shone brighter and stronger. They attempted to eliminate you. Instead, they made your voice difficult to ignore. First and foremost, they had power over you yet lacked authority. They may have exercised physical authority over you by pulling strings, making choices, and directing events. However, such power was never underpinned by legitimate authority. Influence may be loud and scary, but authority is deeper. It is based on honesty, fairness, and spiritual harmony. They mixed up control with the right to judge, which are quite different things. Their efforts to convict you sprang from a location outside any legitimate authority. They behaved like kings and queens in a realm that was not theirs to control. Spiritually, they had no right to make you feel inferior, to take away your dignity, or to determine your value. Their purported power was acquired or stolen, not earned. They acted without responsibility. But the cosmos does not work that way. There is a greater rule that regulates all activities, one that looks beyond human masks and titles. The law does not recognize their self-appointed status or created authority. Now that divine law has intervened, it is drawing back the curtain to disclose the truth. They were never qualified for the positions they claimed. The power they wielded was a ruse, and the judgment they rendered was unjust. As a consequence, they are being deleted, sometimes painfully and openly from their chairs. Their power is being undermined because it was founded on a fragile foundation of hubris and deception. This spiritual reckoning does not just restore equilibrium. It serves as a reminder to everyone that genuine authority comes from those who live with integrity, humility, and respect for others. They confused power for authority and suffered the consequences. Meanwhile, you are free, confirmed not by their illusory rule, but by the undeniable fact that your spirit is beyond their grasp. A number. Their hands are filthy, yet they can't wash it off. They thought they could get away with it, doing the hard job, leaving a path of destruction, and then sneaking away unscathed. They felt they could clean their hands by telling falsehoods, being silent, or altering their tale whenever it suited them. Maybe they assumed no one would remember. Nobody would notice. Alternatively, time would remove all the agony they created. But spiritual law does not operate that way. It isn't an invisible eraser that you may use whenever you want. A new start. Every damaging deed and harsh purpose leaves a scar on the spirit and the energy it carries. Their hands are soiled, and no amount of lying or rebranding will make it go away. The hurt they created is not only a recollection. It leaves an impact on their whole existence. The evil they attempt to throw at you has found a way to settle within them, twisting, and unraveling their life piece by piece. It manifests as restless nights, deteriorating relationships, and missed chances. The upheaval they created is returning to upset their foundations, and it is unstoppable. They wanted to escape, to pretend nothing had occurred. However, spiritual justice does not evaporate. It follows. It confronts. It also needs equilibrium. The destruction they caused is working against them in ways they never anticipated. They may attempt to flee, hide, or cover it up as they slowly but steadily dismantle the illusory security they've established, but they can't get away with it. In the end, their soiled hands reveal the truth. A tale of grief and its effects. And they may behave as if they are untouchable, but underneath the surface, their lives are crumbling. What they did to you has become their personal jail, and no amount of cleaning will make them free. A number. You were the test. They failed through hubris. Your presence in their lives was not coincidental. It was an intentional test, a heavenly checkpoint meant to show their actual nature. They may choose to love you unconditionally, to support you without selfish intentions, and to defend you without the desire to control or dominate. Instead of rising to the challenge, they faltered not just because of what they did, but also why they did it. Their failure was deeply based in arrogance and pride, which blinded them to the true meaning of love and commitment. They believed they could manage the situation to their advantage, bending your generosity and trust to benefit their own egos. They felt they were entitled to your allegiance without giving anything back. However, such exams do more than only evaluate activities. They reveal the core of their behaviors. Theirs was filled with selfishness, fear, and an insatiable need for control. Their hubris blinded them to the implications of their decisions. They failed to see that meaningful connection required humility and respect, which they lacked. Instead, they used you as a stepping stone, a resource, or a mirror of their own vulnerabilities. They expected you to accept anything because of who you are. They forgot that real love and support are not about ownership or control. They are about freedom and faith. They are now suffering the price. The exam they believed they could easily pass has become their reckoning. Their arrogance has landed them in situations from which they cannot recover. Meanwhile, you're going away not as a failure, but as evidence that genuine love doesn't need restrictions. It entails respect, honesty, and bravery. They failed the exam not because you weren't good enough, but because they were too arrogant to meet you where you needed them. And now justice is ensuring that they bear the full consequences of their failure. Number what they did was purposeful, as was what is happening to them today. What they did to you was neither accidental nor thoughtless. It was purposeful, planned, and exact. Every nasty comment, every betrayal, every time they pushed you to your limits was a conscious decision. They did not unintentionally do you harm. They went out to inflict suffering, assuming they could avoid the repercussions. However, they failed to see that the cosmos maintains records in ways that no human ledger ever could. Each tear you wept was recorded. Every wound they caused was noted. Nothing got between the gaps. They are now facing a reckoning as calculated as their brutality. This isn't just some karma pouring shade. It is precision justice, created and customized to the wrongs they have done. The same energy that they used to injure and manipulate you is returning, wrapped in divine timing and intention. They selected their acts, and those actions are now determining their outcomes. The equilibrium is being restored not by chance, but by a greater order. This cannot be tricked or hurried. Their suffering is not a random punishment. It's a normal reaction to their decisions. What they previously thought was authority is crumbling under the strain of responsibility. Every covert betrayal and hidden malice is emerging, pushing them to confront what they have denied for so long. They want to shatter you, but in actuality, they put in motion their own downfall. So, certainly, what they did was purposeful, as was what is happening to them today. Blind, it is exact, patient, and unavoidable. And this time, their names are all on it. What you went through was no accident. It was a well-planned attack, a determined effort to knock you down because they saw something in you. They saw your power, honesty, and sheer being as a challenge to their authority. They misjudged you at every stage, seeing your generosity for weakness, your quiet for surrender, and your survival for failure. But what they didn't realize was that every act of brutality, falsehood, and effort to obliterate you simply helped you ascend. Their power was never a legitimate authority, and now, divine justice is systematically demolishing their counterfeit kingdoms. They fulfilled their jobs as judge, juror, and executioner, but they forgot about a greater court that holds them responsible beyond human judgment. They administered ceremonial injury, intended to confound and control. Nonetheless, you overcame psychological warfare and emerged not shattered, but indestructible. Their terror now discloses what they had never confessed. They're not apologizing. They are scared of being exposed, of learning the truth. You bear the responsibility, as well as the unavoidable consequences. You were their biggest challenge, and their hubris led to their demise. Your presence devastated their lives. Your perseverance undermined their narratives, and your generosity became the proof that condemned them. What they sought to destroy has become their undoing. This is more than simply a survival tale. It's a narrative of victory, justice, and awakening. The consequences they now face are neither arbitrary or unintentional. They are the inevitable and accurate result of decisions taken in darkness. Remember this as you continue to stand tall. Your strength has always existed, your truth irrefutable, and your future impenetrable by those who never had the authority to condemn you in the first place. The table has turned. The masks are tumbling, and the true tale is now being revealed on your terms. If this message speaks to your soul, bringing clarity, strength, or affirmation, don't go without locking in. Subscribe to the channels to ensure you never miss the realities they attempted to stifle. Like this video to demonstrate that you are standing in your strength today, not in your suffering. Comment here to let your voice be heard. Your story counts here, so share it with someone who is emerging from the same ashes. Trust me, they need this. This is not just a channel. It provides a secure sanctuary for the awakened, tested, and selected. We voice facts that others are reluctant to utter. We do it without apologies. So, if you're done playing small and ready to step courageously into your destiny, welcome home. Hit the subscribe button. Your tribe is right here. God bless you.